This is the sound of your ride home with Dad after he caught you vaping. Awkward, isn't it? Most vapes contain seriously addictive levels of nicotine and disappointment. Know the real cost of vapes. Brought to you by the FDA.
Life can throw a lot your way in the morning. You might be battling drop-off times, while your kids are battling imaginary monsters or their shoelaces. But no matter what life brings, Life cereal puts a smile on everyone's face. With 24 grams of whole grains and unexpected sweetness in every serving, it's sure to please even the pickiest eaters. Help start your mornings with Life cereal.
I really love my life.
You can support this podcast at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, a dating game contestant picks the most charming bachelor. The only problem? He's a serial killer. We'll talk about the film Woman of the Hour from Netflix.
It sounds like a rom-com.
Yeah,
just a
log
line.
Problem.
Yeah. He's just got one red flag. He's a serial killer.
Can she change his heart to good?
I can change him.
I can change him.
Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband, love of my life. It's Bachelor number 1, Kevin Flynn. Hi, Kevin. What are girls for?
What are girls for? That's a great question. What are they for, if not for making me dinner, rubbing my feet, and pouring me a scotch?
Also with us is private
and
investigator,
that other thing.
Certified pet detective, resident cat lady, author of The Final Curtain. It's Bachelorette number 2. Hi, Laura.
Hey, I like long walks on the beach and petting cats.
And finally, our captain of all things cynical, the author of the City Trilogy of novels, host of Rip Current, Strange Arrivals, and our Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast host, the most cynical bachelor of all, Bachelor number 3, Toby Ball. Hi, Toby.
Hey, I'm not playing this game.
Oh, well, that's what girls are for, not playing any
He's playing
games.
hard to get. Ooh, I want him.
Exactly. You pursue that which retreats.
We can draw him out of his shell.
Yeah. Again, I can change him. So, Kevin, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm great. I spoiled my dinner with candy, which we'll talk about later. Laura, how are you?
I'm well. I didn't get any candy and I didn't get any trick-or-treaters, so I'm good.
Oh. Toby, how are you?
I am just awesome.
All right. Should we move on to what's coming up on Thursday's show?
Yeah, I suppose so. That didn't go anywhere.
It went swimmingly. We just taped yesterday.
Yeah.
We're all out of things to talk about.
No, we are. We got a whole other 2 shows to talk about. On Thursday,
yes,
we're going to come back and we're going to be talking about the podcast from Wondery and Novel. It's called Kill List.
It's going to be a spicy conversation.
Okay, if you say so.
I've seen the notes.
Oh, you've seen the notes? I haven't looked at the notes. Okay. Good.
Yeah, but I'm really interested in talking about the thing we're talking about. I really want to get to it because it scared the shit out of me.
Toby's like, for once.
For once, I'm not stuck in an endless loop of chit-chatting about unrelated, non-podcast shit. Is that about right, Toby? Did that do it?
No, I'm just glad that you're happy to talk about it.
All right, well, let's get to it. Leading off.
Well, I booked you a guest spot on a TV show.
Wait, really?
Yeah, you bet. Friday.
Right, but I didn't audition.
You didn't have to. I sent them your resume. They think you're perfect.
What's the show?
Looking to get a break in show business, struggling actress Sheryl Bradshaw appears on the dating game. The first 2 bachelors are either shallow or lascivious, but bachelor number 3 has an easy charm that makes him the clear favorite.
Bachelor number 3, what's the difference between a boy and a man?
A boy thinks that buying a woman dinner means she owes him something.
Okay, and what does a man think?
Well, for starters, he knows better than to start talking about dessert before he's made it through dinner.
But Rodney Alcala is more than a smooth-talking photographer looking for love. He spent the past decade murdering unsuspecting women and eluding detection. How could Sheryl or the TV audience know she was about to go on a date with a serial killer?
You know, most people don't like to be seen. They're afraid.
Because you have to be comfortable with yourself. You have to stop performing. I never hide who I am.
The Netflix thriller Woman of the Hour dramatizes Sheryl's real-life encounter with a predator. Lead actress and director Anna Kendrick ratchets up the tension with a character resigned to 1970s misogyny and its lurking menace, all while showing us in parallel what Rodney is capable of. Spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about pretty significant plot points from Woman of the Hour, so if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes for our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. Laura Bricker, I watched this whole fucking movie under a blanket. I'm including my head. How about you? Did you find this movie a little bit scary, yes or no?
Yes, but not as scary as you.
Oh, okay. But I'm a baby.
The opening scene was very scary and pretty disturbing, to put it mildly, where we have, the chasing the woman and then he chokes her and then he brings her back to life and you're like, oh, this is some really dark,
fucked up
really scary shit. The part where I was hiding under my blanket, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but there was the one part where Anna Kendrick's, Sheryl is walking in a parking lot. And that's when I was like, is it over yet? Oh my God, is he there? Oh my God. Because it was one of those classic horror movie scenes where she's you can hear her shoes click, clack, click, clack, click, clack. And they're click clacking a little faster and click clacking. And you can see him and you're like, oh, please make it. It's I've had nightmares about that where I'm trying to escape somebody and I just get into the place in time, just like she did. So it was pretty scary. And I think one of the things that ratcheted up the suspense for me was not knowing if her character was going to be one of the victims. Yeah. So that was always the undercurrent as you're getting the flashbacks of the other women that are victims. Oh God, is she next? Is she next? Is it going to happen now?
Yeah.
Oof. Yeah.
So Kevin, I've read the comments in advance, as I always do. Mm-hmm. And I actually fundamentally disagree with a comment of yours, but I'm very interested in hearing your take.
Let's start with an argument.
Because, don't be an argument, but I actually really like it that this was made into a scary movie because a lot of true crime stuff is, it's more entertainment focused, right? It's more centering the victim and then making the killer sort of out here and telling this whole story and really making the killer at the center of it in a way that's I don't know, sometimes not great for me. I liked it that this was a scary movie, but I'll see it by your notes that you didn't. Why?
No, you did not read that correctly.
Okay.
Or I'm not communicating that correctly.
Oh, okay.
I do think there is a value, and most of this is mostly for women, that consuming true crime content is sort of a safe way to process being a victim or something else. There is certainly, the knock on true crime is that women listen to it, and why would they do that? And super sexist. And no one's asking well, why do men love World War II movies? Are they violent? Whatever the fuck. But I am not crazy about when true crime is positioned as horror. Right? Instead of it being about crime or behaviors or history, that it's just people on certain podcasts or whatever, just kind of cackling about ooh, how scary this is. It's a horror, right? Like that. It's a Halloween tie-in or something like that, celebrating serial killers as horror movie villains that are just coming to get you because you're so special, right? So, you call that horror if you want or whatever, but this is the first title that I've listened to or seen where the menace translates into real horror movie kind of tension and it's appropriate.
I see.
Right. It makes this story scary without it being, without being this supernatural flair where it's Jason is coming for you and let's, what is the daylight? Don't watch alone. It's really scary because the true events are really scary.
Yeah.
And it captures it in a way that I haven't seen before.
Yeah. Think about it. You should be under a blanket when you're watching a thing about a predator. You should be, right? Of course, I will just say again, I'm a giant baby and have a hard time watching anything scary. So that was just me. But Toby, what's interesting about this is that it's not about the serial killings. It's about that. But it's also about something else, which I know that you also made note of, and we talked about a little bit when we were recording yesterday. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting in that I think we've watched a bunch of things that have been called feminist shows or whatever, and a lot of it seems to me to be women being treated terribly, and you kind of seeing that. It's not necessarily exploitive, but it seemed sort of both easy and simplifying and then not really teasing out what sort of misogyny looks like as a whole. And I think what this does it's really interesting is that while you're watching it, it's sort of, it kind of puts this guy, Rodney Alcala, he puts his acts as like the furthest extreme of like this spectrum of sort of misogyny and like expectations for women. So a lot of this movie, I mean, there's plenty of women getting murdered, but there's also women in situations in which they're being asked to degrade themselves. They're not taken seriously. They're told to act stupid so that the men around them can feel smart. So she's showing a broader sort of view of what it was like to be a woman in the 70s. And then the murder stuff is an extreme, but not the only way in which women suffer from sexism. And I think because of that, I mean, my sense of this when I was done is this is a very angry movie.
Yeah.
I was watching it with my wife. She was very angry when it was over. And I think that's the strength of the movie in a lot of ways, is that it really kind of just shows that it's not just this weird detached thing from society that this guy's going around murdering women. It's just the outermost limits of this general force that infects all parts of the women who you see, their lives.
Yep. So, Laura, I felt this movie was so current in so many ways and reflects the experience of women today in such a strong way. And in one particular way, in that we are hardwired, because we are told to do it since we were little kids, to be polite to fucking everyone, right? So there's this whole thing of like, this person is talking to you, and even when he starts giving you the creeps, you still have to be somehow solicitous, right? And I think the most poignant scene for me in the movie was when she feels like she has to sleep with her neighbor, who she clearly does not want to sleep with. He's helping her run lines. She's not attracted to him, but it's just like, you know what? It's just like, this is the nice thing to do, because it's like, it's just trying to smooth it over, right? After sort of implying that she didn't like him and his feelings are hurt. And in order to get over the hurt feelings for him, she has to fix it by sleeping with him.
Oh my God. Sorry. That just took me by surprise. No, that just tickled for, that just took me by surprise. Sorry.
That rang so freaking true to me. I've been in that situation in my life as a young person. I totally understand it. How did you feel about those scenes where we just saw women being polite to their own detriment?
Well, I was cured of that during the online dating era after I read the burn the haystack method and stopped having to be polite to everyone, because it is so conditioned into us as women. And I know I'm like, oh, I don't want to hurt that person's feeling. Oh, okay, I'll go out with them again. I don't really like them, but I'll go out with them again. But in that particular scene, Rebecca, I think one of the things they do really well in this is zooming in on women's faces. And when they zoom in on the women's faces and you see these expressions and you see the body language, there's no words, but that says so much. And in the scenes with that neighbor, right from the beginning, I was like, oh, wait, is he the killer? Because he comes in and you can see she's uncomfortable because she gets back from her audition and gets a phone call. And he just like comes in and like makes himself at home. And you can see that she's not comfortable with that. But she's just like, oh, yeah, because she doesn't want to be rude. So this guy just camps out there while she's on the phone. And then fast forward to the scene that you just referenced where they're now in the bar and they're having a drink. And she's like, well, you're my only friend here. And then he reaches over and touches her and she like jumps and then immediately apologizes for jumping because it upset him.
And that's what we do. That's what women do.
Yep. So the scene when we see her wake up in the morning, look over at him and get out of his bed, I was like, oh, that's unfortunate. But that is one of the things that they really did well in this, is kind of showing that sort of range of emotions that goes over the female characters' faces at different parts and different scenes in this, which are like, and you can relate to it as you're watching it, like, oh, she's thinking this, but she's not going to say it, and she's going to do this. The way that it was set up was super effective.
Yeah.
Yeah, Laura, the thing that like got me was you talking about that scene in the bar, and you realize it's getting weird, and then then it like hard cuts to her in bed the next morning, and like as a viewer, all of a sudden you're like, what the fuck happened there? Yeah. And then it clicks, like that went to that to that. She just did that because again, she's trying to smooth it over with the guy, and that says so much, and it's very indicative of a lot of what's going on in this movie. I think Toby correctly identifies there's a lot about gender politics here and about how women were just openly treated. Well, yes, don't veer me off here and say I'm going one way. Certainly in the 70s, in this representation, a lot of that is just so very open and unapologetic. at least today, some people might be the least bit embarrassed for saying that when you point it out, but you just see so much of this casual institutionalized misogyny. And that's like when she gets punished. Every time Sheryl tries to do something that exerts, to use the term of the time, liberation or any kind of autonomy, when she's trying to break away from the mold of just being the pretty, polite, dumb girl, she gets punished by somebody or something, right? There's also like this secret language among the women, because virtually all of the men in this movie are either predators of some kind or ineffective. They don't listen. And all of the women, with except maybe the agent who's on the phone we never hear, is a protector. Somebody that gets the other person and understands the secret language among women. And I thought that was really well done. And it isn't like necessarily throwing it in your face. They're not virtue signaling all this stuff, but it's there in the subtext. And I think that's what brings some depth to the story.
What brings depth to it is that it shows that when a woman actually does stand up for herself, doesn't apologize and fights back, she gets murdered. Like, this is what happened with the flight attendant scene, right? Where she's actually probably the most like independent, like she has this career, she's moving in this apartment by herself.
She can paint by herself.
Dude, just help me move that furniture. Like, she has her whole shit together. And as soon as she realizes something's off with him, she tries to end it, and then she fights back, and then he just like murders the shit out of her. And then you realize at the very end of the film, the girl who gets away and takes him down, she gets away by being nice to him.
Do you think that you could not tell anyone about this? Please? I would just be so fucking embarrassed. You know how judgmental people can be.
It's an unbelievable, well done dynamic here that really like blew me away, because it's like Anna Kendrick, her character gets away because she's lucky. Right? And everybody else, you know, if they show any gumption, any fight, they're dead. That girl woke up and she was like, I'm sorry. I'd be so embarrassed if anyone knew about this. This reminds me so much, you know, I have a friend, Katie, who said to me a few months ago, like, stop apologizing for taking up space. And what she was referring to was the fact that we were eating out. And I got up to go to the bathroom, and I was walking by people, and I was like, excuse me, I'm sorry, excuse me, I'm sorry, excuse me, I'm sorry. And you do that on an airplane. Men just say, excuse me. They don't apologize for taking up actual physical space that's totally normal to take up. Like, that's just how we are wired. We apologize for taking up space in the world. And I think this film did a really good job of showing that, obviously in these very dramatic scenes. But, you know, that flight attendant was just moving into her apartment. Right? It's all she was doing. So I want to talk about the performances. Daniel Zavato plays Rodney. Toby, what did you think about his performance?
I thought it was great. I've never heard of the guy, didn't recognize him. I don't know if he's been in other stuff or whatever, but he kind of displays enough sort of this alpha male charisma when he's around other men. Like when you see him with like the guys at the LA Times, or when he's with the other bachelors. In those places, he's the alpha. Like everybody's like either hanging on to his like stories or whatever, or in the case of the bachelors, he's just able to put his like one rival kind of in his place fairly easily.
What about her?
What about her?
You haven't seen her yet. What if she's petite?
I'll let her blow me.
No, you won't.
I won't? And why is that?
Because I always get the girl.
But the guy sees through him at the same time, just like the guys at the LA Times did, right?
Right. And he tells Anna Kendrick, like, watch this guy. But when you see him with women, it's a different thing. It's not really charm, or it's charm that doesn't really stick. Like he tries it, but then women kind of suss him out fairly quickly. And you do too, right? You see the difference in the way he's interacting. And I thought that was, you know, in my opinion, being able to do that in a way that sort of the audience could pick up on is good acting. Like when you first see him, I'm like, who is this dude? Is this going to like, they had to get this like nobody to play in this part. Is this movie going to suck? And then he's really good. And, you know, I think most of the acting in the movie is actually pretty good.
Yeah, I don't think you should overlook his performance, because he's not like Zac Efron smooth, right? So he's not like Ted Bundy and brings that energy to it. And he's not like any of the creepy killers from Mindhunter, right? He's very likable when he puts the mask on, right? Also, like, you don't have to whitewash this character by watching him cry over what we assume is his shame over what he does. It does indicate depth to the character, but they don't explicitly ask for sympathy for him. They just do a few things there to show why he's able to do what he's able to do, how it affects him, but it doesn't whitewash any of the evilness that he has, right? He's smooth. He's not as smooth as I am when I want to do a transition into the business section.
Oh, that's smooth, Kevin.
I can talk people into things like...
I didn't see that coming.
You didn't see that coming?
Nope.
Well, that's the problem, Rebecca. You're just too passive in this world.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
You just want to be polite. So this is I'm gonna use my serial killer charm. Hey, you don't want to disappoint me.
Oh, God. That's
you don't want to disappoint me, do you?
That's so creepy.
Do you not want
Look
to?
up. Look up.
Look up.
Look at the light.
Make eye contact with me so I can tell you all about Patreon and why you need to be on it.
All right, you need a ponytail.
I don't need a ponytail?
You need long ass, like, hair.
Yeah, he looks like Meatloaf after been taking care of himself. Yeah, Oh, what was it? I got to set the mood again. So if you join us at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia,
Yeah.
we're going to treat you right.
Really?
You're going to get all sorts of exclusive stuff that's only for you.
Really?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
what?
Don't ask me things like that. Just sit there, little lady.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And take it.
I'm sorry. You're
You're going to get the Crime Writers on After Show. We're
Okay.
going to be talking about... We're recording this on Halloween. So, while you might still have a couple of candy bars left over from last weekend, we're going to talk about our Halloweens growing up. What was our favorite candy, our favorite costume, that kind of thing. It should be kind of fun.
Whether it's spooky.
Did you ever go dressed as Ted Bundy?
No.
No,
That's
because
fucked up.
that would be really fucked up.
Yeah.
I get it. Okay. Some of the other exclusive podcasts we got Rebecca's Readathon talking about the Karen Reed case. I was calling it the Karen Reed trial, but no, this is like a whole big case.
It's the Karen Reed corruption case.
The Karen Reed corruption case, and with the next episode, Rebecca talks about the 2-part Vanity Fair article and the revelations therein. You thought you knew everything about the case?
Nope.
I'm going to really rip up the carpet on that one.
Yes.
Laura Bricker
Good callback.
Laura Bricker has an exclusive podcast. It's called Leave It to Bricker, and Laura has been dealing with, the last time she and Lance got together, they went up to upstate New York for a Sasquatch calling contest. If you want to find out like how romantic that can be, you have to listen in.
Sasquatch looks really good with a ponytail.
Yeah? Oh, so is that what you're calling him now? Sasquatch? Yeah, tell him to be called Bigfoot is really, really wonderful. Yeah. Another great thing you can do, ladies.
Oh, God, Kevin.
If you want more Toby Ball.
Oh, yeah. Ladies, he's all yours.
You can go Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast.
Yes.
And he's talking about a cult.
Yes.
Something that became a cult. The next book is called The Sullivanians.
Yes.
Toby, give us a quick thumbnail. What are we talking about here?
It's a sort of this out there psychoanalytic center that was sort of teaching that your parents totally screw you up, so that kids should be raised away from their parents. You shouldn't have kids. You shouldn't be monogamous. And it went from
what's wrong with that?
Those humble beginnings to like a full-on cult situation in Upper West Side Manhattan.
Yeah. All cults sound great at the beginning.
They do.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I want to join a cult so badly.
Yeah.
You want to join a
start our own cult?
This cult had a lot of free love, which I think was a big attraction for some people.
We can either be a cult or we can be serial killers. And this week we're going to be serial killers, right? Save the cult stuff for next time.
Okay.
Where was I?
All right.
So, ladies. I know you don't want to disappoint me. You were raised to be polite.
Disappointing you is my hobby.
You don't want to disappoint me, do you? Go to patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia and sign up for the highest support level that you can.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I'll be disappointed in you. I see you on social media. I know what your name is.
Yeah.
I've seen your profile picture and I'm looking through you.
Yeah.
Oh, good God.
I'd be a good 1970s serial killer, right?
Are we going to have to put a content warning on this?
Trigger warning. Okay, well, that's it. We would love to have you there. Otherwise, I will find you and make you put the lotion on your body.
Oh, stop it.
Ew.
Put you in a well.
Put you in a well.
With it, yeah. Oh, Jesus. Kevin, are we done with the business section?
I fucking hope so.
Hopefully.
I apologize to everybody. They're like, we have to sit through not only this movie, but this movie review, and then we also have to sit through Kevin trying to, I don't know.
Be
what
a
am
sexy serial
Be
killer?
a sexy serial killer. Is that what it is?
No.
Rebecca, you disappoint me.
It's okay. I'm all right with that.
You're all right with
please
that?
in the business section now?
Yeah, please, let's do that.
Thus ends
the business section.
Or whatever the fuck that was.
I'm going to go ahead and fade that music out right now. Toby's like, I disavow myself of this whole fucking thing.
Oh, you disappointed Toby.
Yeah, let's just start all over again.
Let's fade that music out. I'm going to get that done now.
Parents, when you visit California, childhood rules. If you don't remember how awesome childhood is, just ask yourself, what would kids do? Let childhood rule your family vacation. Start planning your trip to the ultimate playground at visitcalifornia.com.
So, Kevin, who's our next sponsor?
Hey, we're sponsored by Quince.
Oh, hell yeah.
All right, so this is what I'm going to do. This is the script. Tear it up. Because all I say, Rebecca, tell us about your latest purchase from Quince.
I got the most...
Because you purchase a lot from Quince very frequently.
It's basically like my wardrobe staple place, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I just got the most incredible faux fur hoodie jacket. It is the softest thing I have ever touched in my entire life. Every time I wear it, I'm like, you have to touch this. You have to touch this. You have to touch this.
Yeah.
I love it so much that I also bought one for somebody else for Christmas. I'm so excited about this jacket and about everything that I've ever bought at Quince.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. So get yourself something or give that somebody special something for Christmas.
They even have furniture now, Kevin. Furniture.
Yeah. Okay, I kind of regret ripping this because there's something to read.
Oh, I got to read this.
Read the end.
Okay.
You need both pieces?
No. Get cozy. Get cozy in Quince's high quality.
See, that's where I ripped it.
Yeah. Get cozy in Quince's high quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/crime.
Crime.
For free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/crime.
Crime.
To get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/crime.
Crime.
This is the sound of your ride home with Dad after he caught you vaping. Awkward, isn't it? Most vapes contain seriously addictive levels of nicotine and disappointment. Know the real cost of vapes. Brought to you by the FDA.
From the Delta Sky Club
Welcome back, Miss Klein.
to the Jet Bridge, Delta Airlines relies on 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business to power operations and serve customers faster. Together, we're putting 5G into the hands of ground staff so they can better assist on-the-go travelers with real-time information throughout the airport. This is elevating customer experience. This is Delta Airlines with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
All right, so Laura?
Yes.
The dating game set really sucked, eh?
Yeah.
Except for the hair people who were great.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So when Kevin was talking earlier about the characters that were sort of like the supportive characters, so one of those in particular really stood out to me. It was after Sheryl kind of goes off script and starts asking her own questions. And she's like, zing, 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 zing. And the makeup lady comes back out. And she had already talked to the makeup lady beforehand when shitty misogynistic host guy comes in and is like, put her in a different dress. Don't be smart, all that shit. And I'm like, fuck him. But then the makeup lady comes out after she's zing, zing, zinged and basically says something to her about, you know, Anna Kendrick's character, Sheryl, is like, you know, did I go too far? What did you think?
Honey, I've been on this show since 1968, and I've seen more idiots flirting back and forth than I can count. The one thing I've learned is, no matter what words they use, the question beneath the question remains the same.
All right. What's the question?
Which one of you will hurt me?
That was just one of those, like, it was such a telling kind of exchange, again, going back to sort of the time that this was taking place. And yes, this is still happening today. But at that point, it was like, I think more pigeonholed in terms of the role that women were playing. And I think that particular scene sort of shows the undercurrent of, hey, we're all in this together. We gotcha.
Yeah, but it's also creepy as fuck because one of them is a serial killer, right, Toby?
Yeah.
We know which one of them is going to want to hurt her.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure. I think that the only one who has zero potential for hurting her was the kind of dumb guy.
Bachelor number one.
He seemed like he would be overwhelmed by just having to like
have a conversation.
But the other two, I think Bachelor number 2 probably had his issues as well.
What does it say about us that like the one Bachelor who seems the most charming and that she ought to pick is the serial killer?
Yeah.
But that's like classic sociopath stuff, though, right? I mean, he understands what people want from him in order to get what he wants, so he's able to parrot it back to them without any kind of moral qualms or anything getting in the way of him. Just like, I know what the answer to this question is from her point of view.
Yeah.
So I'll just kind of throw it out there. I don't know if this is like true to the actual dating game that she was on, but he does seem, in the way it's written, is that he does kind of understand how to talk to a smart feminist woman in that context.
Yeah.
In a situation where he's basically being asked to make double entendres all the time or say sexy things, he's able to say things that come off as being relatively sincere and sort of empowering her, even though while you're watching it, you know that it's complete BS, that he's just kind of sussed her out and knows what he has to say in order to win the game. And he kind of signals that to Bachelor number 2 during the break. He knows what he's doing and he knows he's going to win.
Yeah.
And the other guy's just like, he's sort of scuzzy, but I think he's good looking. I think he's used to being that sort of scuzziness and that kind of banter as being charming to women. So he doesn't see why he would change it in that situation. Whereas the actual killer is like, I know how to play this game. I know the psychology behind getting her to pick me.
I thought it was really interesting that he was the one who warned Anna Kendrick's character about it, because it's like, he's not a good guy and he can recognize a really bad guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's just sort of like the ability that he had to, see that there was something really off about this dude that the whole audience, except for the one woman who recognized him, felt kind of charmed by.
Doesn't it feel like a thing like at a bar? Doesn't it seem like a bar situation where like two guys are talking to a woman and the guy who kind of loses out is kind of seen that the guy who's apparently going to go home with her is like kind of a scary dude and like tries to warn. I mean, it just seemed like there was a lot of other situations in which that same kind of interaction would happen. I thought the part that Laura brought up was like a great like 30-second scene.
Yeah.
When she gets that little word of wisdom from the stoned makeup woman. And then it's also nice to see Buster in a different role from Arrested Development.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to remember, who was the host of the dating game, and like, was he like the...
Well, the dating game, for anybody who's listening to this, who watched the film, who is wondering if this is true or not, it is true that the dating game is a super fucked up show insofar as it would send the, quote, winning bachelor and the bachelorette who had never met this person before. The prizes were things like a weekend trip away somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Good grief.
The date wasn't like, we're going to give you $1,000 and send you out to dinner together. It was literally like
Cabo San Lucas.
Two strangers are going to be like on a plane or a boat or somewhere alone together. Super fucked up.
The real Sheryl and Rodney won a trip to Magic Mountain.
What's Magic Mountain?
Magic Mountain, is it? Wasn't Magic Mountain is it a
I don't know. I wasn't dating in California in 1978.
Yeah.
I don't know where to take the chicks.
Well, after the dating game show, they go to a bar together, ostensibly so they get to know each other a little bit before going to Carmel. I don't necessarily think she wants to go, but she's just like, sure, I'm game, whatever. That scene's pretty amazing, right, Kevin?
Oh, yeah. What we've seen about Sheryl is that she's always trying to please, right? And so all of this stuff sets her up for nearly falling into Rodney's lair, right? So when the date turns sour, there's that moment there where we expect Sheryl will further acquiesce until the other waitress, again, another woman who's coming to her rescue, seems to know with a nod or a shake of the head that, no, I'm going to tell the lie and say the bar's closed, because she understands the danger, or at least the peril that this female customer is in. But because we've already seen to the extent of she's going on the dating game because she doesn't want to disappoint the agent, and she slept with the neighbor just because she wanted to smooth over a weird interaction. She's doing all this shit, right? Including changing her dress and asking the dumb questions. It seems reasonable for this character to continue to do things against her own interests, against her own safety, unwittingly.
I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about soul, you know?
Okay. That's very far out. I mean, I think that's good. That's good. I'm into that.
It ends up being she knows, and it isn't until, and even still, like, she can't just say no, she's got to give the fake telephone number. And it isn't until she finally says, I'm not going anywhere with you, which was the break. I will say, and I think Laura said this earlier or alluded to it, I think that Anna Kendrick is best when the camera is just on her and she isn't saying anything. Because she is conveying so much about her insecurities and the gendered subjugation, and I guess when you're the director, you can't see yourself in the monitored acting. But I feel like she just said so much without having to say anything. I think that part was like the best part of her performance, is just with the way that she would hold her head or just react slightly and trying to be prim in a certain way when, like, we all would say, no, don't take that shit. I thought that was some of the best parts of her performance.
That's what you want to think you would do in that situation.
Yeah.
You want to think you would be like, no, fuck you. You want to think that. But when you are alone in an incredibly vulnerable spot, and Laura, I think that the choice of a dark parking lot was not accidental. I mean, there's all these there's all these situations where it's like, since you're a kid, it's like hold your keys between your fingers. So if someone attacks you, you can punch them in the face. Like all these things that we're told, like wear your pocketbook across your body instead of on your arm.
Yes.
What did you think of that parking lot scene, Laura? Because it sincerely creeped me the fuck out. I had to leave the room and tell Kevin to tell me when it was over.
Yeah, I mentioned that when we first started. That was the scene where I actually hid because I was like the clickety clack of her shoes coming across that parking lot faster and faster and faster. And then they would pan out and he was getting closer and closer. And then she finally gets to her car.
But what about the fake number part when he realizes that she gave him a fake number?
Well, the suspense just kept ratcheting up because when she's like, oh, here's my number. And then he goes, oh, why don't you say it back to me so that I know it's the right number? Because like 9s and 6s or something. And then she's like, basically the gig's up.
Can you tell me your number?
I just gave it to you.
Yeah, no, I know. I just want to make sure I have the right one. Sometimes the 4s, they kind of look like 9s.
Right. Yeah, just let me see it. And
Can't repeat it from memory?
I mean, good for her for doing that because it was like that victim that does get away from him and calls the police. It's like playing into him in a way that he thinks you are on board with him when you're actually planning your exit strategy, right? But I think about those situations all the time. Like I went on this like Facebook Marketplace trip this week and I took a friend with me. Thankfully, my friend Mary went with me because we went into like this like enclosed storage unit place in the pitch black in Massachusetts with some guy to go to his storage unit to go buy some bookshelves from my condo. And I was in the car with her and we're following this guy. And I said, I am so glad you're here with me because like I go into a lot of places for work that people think are scary, but I'm like, it is dark out. We don't know this person, and we are going into a storage unit.
That's how you find a head in a jar.
Oh, Jesus.
That's what happened in Silence of the Lambs.
No, that's true, yeah.
So, and then we got in and there was no cell service. I'm like, oh, great. Now the people that track me can't track me either because like some of my friends have like a tracker on me. Should I go missing?
You need to get chipped.
You do need to get chipped like a cat.
Yeah.
That's what Lance wants to put one in my shoe.
Yeah. I think Rebecca and Laura are right where they've identified something here that it's like, as the audience, we're like, no, you don't do that. And when she doesn't do that, you're right. You realize, yeah, you're right. In real life, you know that you're supposed to speak up, but you probably wouldn't.
You don't.
Yeah.
You like to think you would, but you don't.
But yeah, you're like, oh, why did your character do that? Because you're right. Because in real life, you would know better, but you wouldn't.
Right. I mean, my whole thing is I speak up and I'm obnoxious when I'm defending other people. Which is how
That's
Kevin,
not the only time, but okay.
But it's also, it's how Kevin knew not to tell me about the situation that once happened to us on vacation when somebody was really being mistreated, not in my presence. And he was like, I'm so fucking glad Rebecca's not here because she would lose her goddamn mind. But if it were me, like, I just want it to be over. I hate conflict. Mm-hmm. I just want it to be over. And I would try to be clever too. Like, what did you think of that scene, Toby? The parking lot scene, the fake number.
Yeah, I mean, it was chilling. And I don't pretend to speak for women, but I've heard that that's, it's a fraught situation. Like, even if you're just walking down the street and there's somebody else on the street too, it's like, it can be terrifying. You just don't know what the next move is. The way it's directed too, I think it plays out really well. She starts to suspect that he's following her, and then she knows that he's following her, and then she knows that he knows that she knows that he's following her. So it's just kind of like escalates until the point where she's like, you know, really the only chance I have right now is to get in my car and lock the door faster than he can get there. Like that's the one thing, because the situation is now pretty clear. Like he's a predator and he's after me. And then, you know, spoiler alert, fortunately, at just that moment, some people get off work and come out and sort of diffuse the situation. But yeah, I mean, it's a very tense, scary situation. And it's also the end of the movie, basically.
Yeah. It was so abrupt at the end. I just was like, oh, it's over. Okay,
I was so grateful.
Well, yeah, but didn't anybody else find it like super abrupt? And then they just have like the epilogue. I'm like, oh, I guess that's the end of it.
I liked that it ended there, not just because I was scared, but because this one girl broke the pattern. And then the move, and that was like it. It showed his downfall because she broke the pattern. You made an interesting observation in your notes, Laura, about the cinematography. All those Amy scenes were incredible because the girl he picks up at the end were incredible because clearly she uses the tactic that works on him, which is being solicitous, being nice, making him feel manly, making him feel like he's in charge. And then she obviously is super fucking smart because the second he's gone, she runs away to the diner. And thank God there was a diner right there. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But you made an interesting observation about the way those scenes with the women were filmed.
Yeah, I think one of the things, and it was really effective, was particularly with Amy, who we meet as this young runaway. And you can tell she's got some determination when she's like in the laundromat and she's trying to like, you know, get some coins or whatever and talks back a little bit. But in the scene where you watch as he takes her out there and they show just enough violence to give you a sense of how bad it is. But then the next morning, when you see her laying there, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe she's still alive. But they zoom in on her face and you're watching like all these like micro expressions on her face.
As she's figuring out what to do.
Yeah. And it was like, oh, for me, that was just captivating to watch those tiny expressions. You could really tell what she was thinking. And you're looking at her being tied up and you're like, oh, fuck. And he's like crying at that point, which I thought was interesting how he has these sort of moments. But watching her then when she's in the car and they're driving along and she's talking to him, part of what hit me was this is somebody who's already experienced trauma in their life.
Yep.
This is somebody who has experienced past trauma, who's probably a runaway because they came from an abusive household, who knows how the process and the cycle works with an abuser, where you are abused and then there's a period where the abuser's feeling badly. And then there's a little, I wouldn't call it honeymoon period, but you know, and then the cycle begins new. So you could tell that this was somebody who has already experienced trauma, has already been through the cycle of abuse and knows how to take care of herself. But watching it in that lens of that way that they filmed it, just zooming in on her face, it just made it so much more poignant and effective and very emotional to watch that.
This is the sound of your ride home with Dad after he caught you vaping. Awkward, isn't it? Most vapes contain seriously addictive levels of nicotine and disappointment. Know the real cost of vapes. Brought to you by the FDA.
Hey, I'm Yara Shahidi, and I'm the host of The Optimist Project. This is the podcast that asks, what gives you hope? Each week, I sit down with changemakers you may or may not know, from comedy, music, academia, and more, to uncover what inspires them to create a better tomorrow. Join us as we find out ways that we can cultivate optimism in our own lives. You can find The Optimist Project wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to follow the show so you never miss an episode.
The most innovative companies are going further with T-Mobile for Business, like Delta Airlines. Together with T-Mobile for Business, Delta Airlines is putting 5G into the hands of ground staff so they can better assist on-the-go travelers with real-time information. From the Delta Sky Club to the Jet Bridge, this is elevating customer experience. And Tractor Supply trusts 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business to connect over 2,200 stores around the country with 5G business internet. Plus, T-Mobile is powering AI solutions so Tractor Supply team members can match shoppers with the products they need faster. This is enriching customer experience. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
Life can throw a lot your way in the morning. You might be battling drop-off times, while your kids are battling imaginary monsters or their shoelaces. But no matter what life brings, Life cereal puts a smile on everyone's face. With 24 grams of whole grains and unexpected sweetness in every serving, it's sure to please even the pickiest eaters. Help start your mornings with Life cereal.
I really love my life.
All right, let's do what we do. Let's let our listeners know, should they check out the film Woman of the Hour? It's on Netflix. Laura Bricker, what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down for this movie?
Yeah, so I'm thumbs up on this, even though it was very scary and it was not easy subject matter. I think the performances by all of the actors in this were amazing. I think the way that they gave portraits of the women that were victims of this man were done in a way that really conveyed not only what they went through, but sort of what they were living through at the time in history that this was all taking place. And it was filmed in a way that made this come to life in a different way. So it was a thumbs up for me. I did hide. I hid under my blanket, not as much as Rebecca, but I think it was very well done.
Toby Ball, thumbs up or thumbs down for Woman of the Hour?
Yeah, I actually thought this was extraordinary. I think it would have been very easy to make sort of a mid movie out of this story. I mean, I think the sort of dating game angle and stuff, you could have just kind of painted by numbers from there. And instead, I think what you get is this, you know, it's a look at misogyny and gender politics and sort of expectations of women in a way that seemed to me to be insightful and honest in a way that sometimes I think things like this don't necessarily do. Like, I'm not a big serial killer movie type of person. So when I was like, not like really looking forward to this. I was actually kind of blown away by it. I just thought it was really, really smart. The acting's really good. The directing, you know, Anna Kendrick, this is her first film directing. I thought it was amazing. I don't know if she worked on the script as well, but whoever did the script, I thought it was really top stuff. So anyway, it's a tough watch in a lot of ways. And I think, you know, in the main review, Laura and Rebecca talk about, you know, some of it was hard to watch and didn't want to see it. And, you know, it's a serial killer movie to a certain extent. So with that warning, I think it was far better than what I was expecting. And I assume it'll be up there in my top 10 sort of TV type things at the end of the year. So that's a big thumbs up.
Kevin Flynn.
Yeah, I'm also a big thumbs up. Remember, there was a very forgettable podcast about the dating game killer, and that was sort of the whole hook. A serial killer went on the dating game. This is so much better. This is kind of a feminist film framed around a story of gender politics as opposed to just a serial killer on the prowl. There's a depth to it around the overt devaluing of women during this time. Our lead character here, Anna Kendrick, is just mesmerizing on the screen, especially when she is quiet and reflective. We get a real sense of how in this society, she is sexualized and demeaned and expected to comply in ways that we are reminded that at the time was completely socially acceptable. And that sets us up for what we know is the danger ahead. It's a really scary story. It's not just because of the foreboding, it's because of the world that we realize has been built around women. Life itself is grooming them for victimization. It isn't fully that she is the target of a serial killer. It's that she is in a world where she is so deprived of recognition that we believe that she might act against her own interests in order to get recognition from somebody who is a serial killer. It's really thought-provoking, but it is also very scary in a way that true crime sometimes belittles, but it is used completely effectively here. So yeah, I'm a big thumbs up.
Yeah, I'm a huge thumbs up for this too, even though I probably watched 40% of it because I was under a blanket the entire time. No, I watched more of it than that. But the scary parts are really scary. I just want to let listeners know that. You know, what Toby said about this being feminist really rings true for me because a lot of times feminist media, even feminist media around true crime, I think of something like Unbelievable. The reason that we sort of come out of it feeling like empowered is because the women win, right? Or like even in fiction, you watch something like Terminator 2 and it's like Linda Hamilton's a fucking badass and she's strong and she's attacked all the time, but then she ultimately wins, right? This isn't that. It is more feminist to show something where women lose all the time, in my opinion. It's way more effective. Just like it's very effective to cover race and racism by covering racist white people. Like covering whiteness is like deeply effective in terms of talking about people of color and what they experience because, you know, watching people win is a fantasy because women don't win in like 85% of the situations that we are put in. We just don't. We have making tremendous compromises. We have to be quiet. We have to be kind. Like I was looking back at my annual reviews for the last 15 years, and it's like a lot of stuff about talking in meetings, a lot of stuff about getting along with colleagues, a lot of stuff that I'm a fucking 100% sure is not on my male colleagues' reviews, right? This whole notion of being nice all the time, it is completely ingrained in even the most badass women I know. It just is. And that's what this is about. And I find that to be a deeply feminist message because we're not watching women win over and over and over again. So yeah, big thumbs up for me for this film. I think it's really important. I think it's super good. And I think it's probably going to win some awards. So good on you, Anna Kendrick. Now it's time for my favorite part of the podcast, a little something I like to call Crime of the Week.
Crime of the Week.
Police in Western Quebec have arrested a 25-year-old man on suspicion of drunk driving after a low-speed crash. The offender's vehicle? A Zamboni. Officials say the man was resurfacing the ice in between hockey games in Chelsea when he failed to make the turn in the back corner. The Zamboni crashed directly into the boards. Neither the driver, the spectators, nor the referee who was slowly skating beside him were hurt. But a door that leads onto the rink was damaged. After administering a sobriety test, police arrested the Zamboni driver. It's not clear who then cleaned up the ice after the first and second periods. So panel, this guy just got sent to the penalty box. What is the next catastrophe to befall the sports world? Laura Bricker?
I think that somebody might inadvertently take a racehorse for a spin down to the bar.
Yeah. What do you think, Toby Ball, is the next catastrophe to befall the sports world?
Illegal curling brooms.
Ooh, it happened. It happened.
Call back.
What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, well, I think it might be taking a no-hitter and a 5-run lead and then blowing it on 3 errors, a balk, catcher's interference, and then a couple of sacrifice flies. Oh, I'm sorry. That catastrophe is called the New York Yankees.
Yes.
And hopefully there's no traffic jam for the parade for the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Absolutely. I think it might be somebody who's holding the football for Harrison Butker. You know, the Chiefs are my favorite team, but I fucking hate that guy. It's like Lucy style.
Lucy's it, yeah.
Yeah, just like pulls it up. And he kicks it and falls on his little misogynistic ass. That would be amazing.
And they run and they go for 2 instead, which is,
All right, that's going to do it for us. Laura Bricker, where can you be found online if fans want to get in touch with you?
You can find me at Laura Bricker on Twitter and Instagram.
What about you, Toby? How can you be found?
At Toby Ball NH.
Kevin Flynn.
I'm Kevin P. Flynn.
You can follow me everywhere at Reb Lavoie. You can follow the show everywhere, Crime Writers On, but mostly I encourage you to join our incredible Facebook group. The folks there are rad. Get episodes early and ad-free and everything else we make on our Patreon. As you heard Kevin say, he'll be very disappointed if you don't. You can find us at patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media.
You don't want to disappoint me.
Our theme song was composed and performed by Ty Gibbons.
You look good in that sweater.
Our editor is the terrific Livy Burdett. You done? The executive producer of this show is Kevin Flynn. This show was recorded in Studio C, The Closet, in our New Hampshire basement, where we also are so awkwardly polite we still might agree to go on a date with a serial killer because it's Carmel, California. On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later.
Let's roll the tape.
Are you hosting the show in my absence?
Well, you guys weren't here, so we figured we'd go ahead. Laura, you said in your note that you think this movie sucks. Can you expand on that a little bit?
It was so scary. I had to hide under the blanket with my cats.
Blankets and cats. Speaking of those.
We were eating. Sorry, we lost track of time.
So let's do what we do. So we knocked out the first one for you guys.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Am I a thumbs up or thumbs down?
We just.
It doesn't matter what you are.
Doesn't matter what I am?
Yeah, it's a 2. It's a 2.
Life can throw a lot your way in the morning. You might be battling drop-off times, while your kids are battling imaginary monsters or their shoelaces. But no matter what life brings, Life cereal puts a smile on everyone's face. With 24 grams of whole grains and unexpected sweetness in every serving, it's sure to please even the pickiest eaters. Help start your mornings with Life cereal.
I really love my life.